So yeah, welcome everyone to our Software Craft People India community. And SCI is a not-for-profit. Sorry to confirm. You see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So SCI is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to connecting individuals with software craftsmanship mindset. Our mission is to foster a community where members can improve their skills and get better at software craft. We organize talks, roundtables, workshops aimed at enhancing craft of software development. Throughout the year, we invite several industry experts to share their insights and expertise with our community. Incubite is the founder and sponsor of this community, and we are a company focused on delivering well-crafted software solutions. And as many of you know already, Christian, our speaker today, is Christian Hujer, and we have Incubite. In Incubite we have had his trainings earlier, and we also had him in work in person. And for me, to summarize Christian in just a small introduction is not sufficient. Still, let me try. He's a seasoned software developer, founder of Nelkinda Software Craft.
Let's tie up on rocky cliff.
Yeah. He brings over 4 decades of experience in software development and craftsmanship. He is a true polyglot. He has worked with vast range of programming languages, from Prolog to Java and across diverse frameworks and environments, spanning smart cards to large-scale server systems. He is deeply passionate about software quality and craftsmanship, advocating for practices such as extreme programming, clean code, TDD, and to name a few. Through his work and mentorship, he consistently strives to create better software and foster better development environments that embody the principles of excellence, collaboration, and continuous improvement. But one thing which I also would like to mention from our training days as well, that he is also a kind of almost all software developers relate with. He is very good in his games. He plays also a lot of games. He also writes code for games. So yeah, we connected over the games as well with him. And to the participants, after the session, we will have question and answer sessions as well. So you can keep your questions ready for post session. And yeah, that's it. Introducing over to you, Christian.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. So yeah, let's get right into it. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep. Yeah.
Perfect. So agility without buzzwords, what really works? By the way, if you have questions or remarks, or also you disagree with something that I say, that's one of the most important, most interesting situations, you're allowed to interrupt me anytime. Yeah, you can raise your hand, or if we are a small group like today, we are actually not such a big group, I think. Or no, it says 66 people. Okay, we are a big group. So raise your hand in that case. And if I may ask Bhumika to help me a little bit with moderation when people are raising hands, like making sure we're following hands that have been risen in the right sequence so that it's a fair game and things like that. Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, into the topic. Agility without buzzwords. And I have to say, me is actually wrong. I take the blame. I lured you into this session today partially under false pretense, because there will be buzzwords. Yeah, but that's kind of unavoidable also. I mean, it's in the nature of the thing that we have to name things, and these names become buzzwords. After all, even buzzword is a buzzword, isn't it? So that's one false pretense. And the other false pretense, it's not really a false pretense, but it's also not explicitly in the title, but I admit it up front. I'm actually going to talk a lot about extreme programming. Yeah. If you don't know extreme programming, doesn't matter. You will come to know a lot about extreme programming, or XP as we like to abbreviate it, during this session. Yeah. But now I have a question for you. And this question is, what is Agile? And if you like, just start typing into the chat whatever comes to your mind. So we have some flesh that we're gonna talk about. Yeah? Because I think now that we are 70 people on the session, we will have at least 71 different opinions. So let's dive a little bit into that picture of Agile. So what does it mean to you? What is Agile? Yeah, you have cool things already. Ability to pivot ASAP when needed, to move fast. Ability to adapt, flexible, to iterate based on feedback, to get feedback ASAP, responding to change quickly. Closing the feedback loop faster. You're actually a pretty good crowd. Yeah. Prioritize current clients' needs. You're a pretty good crowd. I haven't heard daily stand-up meeting yet. And that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Yeah. And we will get to why that's a good sign. Yeah. Move fast without breaking things. I like that. Yeah, sometimes we hear the slogan, move fast and break stuff. But I don't think that that's a universally acceptable concept. Yeah, like let's say you make the software for a pacemaker. Say we make the software for a pacemaker. Do you want to move fast and break stuff? I hope not, right? Does Agile software development still apply when you're creating a pacemaker? I not answer right on the spot, but something to think about. Yeah, you can keep this question in the back of your head, and then we'll talk about that. Yeah. So now we have some flash and really good answers. I'll give you the definition that I think is one of the best that I've seen. Yeah. And I see one thing in the chat I want to highlight, because that's a really cool thing, because you can see already from how it's written that it was written as a joke. Allow business to change requirements every 15 days. One thing is I don't really believe you, because it means that every 7 iterations your planning will fall on a Sunday. But yeah, we will talk about the details, but wanted to highlight that one. But now to the definition that I think is an excellent definition of Agile. Yeah. It's from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And it's, so how they define Agile is marked by ready ability to move with quick, easy grace. Yeah. I think that's an amazing definition. Whoever came up with that definition is a true master and commander of the English language. Let's unpack that definition. Marked by ready ability. It means you're agile even if you're not behaving agile in the moment. Yeah, like a Like a cheetah, for example. A cheetah is an agile animal even when it's sleeping. It doesn't lose its agility just because it's not running in the moment. So marked by ready ability, yeah? To move with quick, easy grace. What does that mean if we translate this to software? What does quick, easy grace mean? And there was a lot of good stuff in the chat that you as a crowd have given for this. Moving fast, yeah, fast, quick, they are almost perfect synonyms. Grace, some people said without breaking things. I like that, yeah, because is it graceful to change things without breaking, or is it graceful to change things and break them? Yeah, quite obviously, without breaking is more graceful. So I really like that definition. But that definition is very useful to understand what the phrase agile means, but it's not enough to actually put that in practice in a software engineering project. There are a lot of other things that we have to put in place in order to get agility going in software. Now, why do some teams have daily stand-up meetings? And you can again answer in the chat if you like, or raise your hand. Yeah, why do teams have daily stand-up meetings? And then whatever your answer is, I'm not interested in only the right answer. I'm also interested in wrong answers or the honest answers. Yeah? If you don't know why you have stand-up meetings, right? I don't know. Yeah? If you have stand-up meetings because that's what your Scrum Master told you to have, then write because the Scrum Master told me. Yeah? Write whatever is your honest truth. That will be the most interesting, most learningful experience for all of us. The first answer to this is already such a marvel, such a truth, such an insight. Yeah. First answer, we work in silos, and so the DSM, the daily stand-up meeting, is a cope. Yeah, for a lot of teams, the daily stand-up meeting indeed is a coping mechanism for silos of all sorts. Yeah, and then now please don't run out of the session and tell that Christian said we should no longer have daily stand-up meetings, therefore we cancel our DSMs. Yeah, that's not the message. Yeah. What I want to get to is what the actual purpose of the daily stand-up meeting is, so that you can evaluate whether in your environment you can find a better mechanism that works much better for you as a team than the daily stand-up meeting. Not everyone will be able to do that. No? Next answer, for the Scrum Master to have some work. Yeah. Is it also why you never fill Jira correctly so that he can or she can feel busy and valued by finding whatever the gaps you leave in Jira? For status updates and to discuss any blockers. Yeah. Next answer the same. Then, that's also a very honest one, to check on each other. It's actually okay. Yeah. As long as you don't do it in a bad way. But yeah, someone just 2 days ago sent me a message. Have you actually looked into the support tickets? Yes, I have, and opened it and found out that I forgot to hit the send button for a reply to a customer. Yeah. So I think as a team, we can operate better if we hold each other accountable in a good way. Yeah. It's not about blaming or finger pointing. Just make sure that we all function properly as a team. And if I see that someone did a mistake, then the best thing I can do is help them to correct the mistake. And if there's something to learn from it, then also help them in the learning journey. So to check progress and blockers, yeah, to know the status of each piece of work and unblock the team members, status update and work on blockers. Good one to know if person X is present today. Just remote work things to make sure the team is all aligned and moving towards the same goal. That's actually a very good answer in the sense of what the purpose is. Now I have a question for you. Let's say a team is small. They're just like 4 to 5 engineers. And they sit together in the same room the whole day. Do they need a stand-up meeting? Some answers say yes, some answers say no. Well, I would say I haven't given you enough information about how the team operates in order to justify either answer. So your answer, whether you answer no or yes, is correct. You have something in your mind. You imagine something about the team or the team situation that leads you to replying yes or no. When you say no, most likely you assume that the team members that are sitting together in the same room, that they not just physically have their bodies present in the room, but that their minds are also present in the room and share information with each other, that they talk and communicate with each other, right? If they do that, they create alignment among the team throughout the whole day. So a stand-up meeting might actually not be required. Yeah. So what Syed said, yes, if they're not talking to each other, that's a good answer. Yeah. Someone says, I would prefer yes because it will put me in different shoes. That will probably depend on also how your mode of working is. Yeah. So I gave you 5 engineers that sit together in the same room. Now let's alter the scenario a little bit. Say not only do these 5 engineers sit together in the same room, but they're also doing pair programming. So no single line of code is written by one person alone. Every line of code is written by 2 people together. And it's always done in a way, it's not like one person programs and the other is watching, playing Candy Crush on their mobile phone. That's not pair programming, obviously. But where the programmer is actually the one who doesn't have the keyboard. Yeah, where the programmer is the one who, okay, what should we do next? I think we should write a new test case for.
కాదు ఇప్పుడు ఆ షూస్ కి మ్యాచింగ్ అవసరం అవే పెడతా.
Muted, Christian.
Christian, if you're saying something, you want to.
I think now everyone was muted. What I got from the conversation is the shoes have to match. And I agree, that's very important. So we were pair programming. Let's say they really pair. What does it mean? It means the programmer is the one who has the idea and then says, okay, we should do this and that. And the one with the keyboard is the one who executes the idea. As soon as the one with the keyboard believes that they understand more than the navigator, or the navigator believes that they understand less than the driver, they should swap roles. That's real pair programming. There are, of course, other mechanisms with which you can decide how to swap roles. I gave you one example. If you have a group of people that works like that, then you really have full alignment. And let's say even the pairs rotate and change throughout the day. Let's move a little bit forward. I want to give you also a link to this talk by Dave Thomas. So who is Dave Thomas? Dave Thomas is one of the two authors. The other is Andrew Hunt, of a very famous book called The Pragmatic Programmer. The Pragmatic Programmer. And their story is also an interesting story. So these people have read the books of like The Gang of Four and Grady Booch and Robert C. Martin and so on, and said, well, we'd like to be like these people. Yeah, how do we become like these people? They collected their ideas, wrote the book, and then they were some of these people. They also were present at the infamous Snowbird meeting where the Manifesto for Agile Software Development was written. And oh my, how time passes. This is 10 years ago now that he gave his go-to talk, Agile is Dead. And what he means with Agile is Dead is the Agile with uppercase A. Yeah, hence also my question, what is Agile? I consciously put the regex syntax here to have lowercase and uppercase A as an option. And he says, what you do is basically find out where you are, take a small step towards your goal, adjust your understanding based on what you learned, repeat. Are there any Scrum Masters here on the call? Can you raise your hand in Teams if you're a Scrum Master?
Christian,
Not
as an
seeing anyone.
organization, we have stayed away from the role of a Scrum Master. But yes, there are people outside of Incubate. So
Yeah.
there might be a few.
Yes, that's why I asked. Yeah. Looks like they already got so offended by my talk that either they left or they are no longer, they're too scared to raise their hands. There's actually a good reason why I'm asking. Usually when you're a Scrum Master, you actually go through a training, and the training isn't bad. Yeah, it's insufficient, but what's present in the training is actually good stuff. And one of the things that you typically learn during the training is the Deming cycle. Yeah? So what's the Deming cycle? Let's look at that. That's the Deming cycle. Yeah? It's also known as PDCA cycle. So it's the plan, do, check, act cycle. I don't know who's there, not on mute. Yeah, so that's the Deming cycle. Plan, do, check, act. Yeah. What exactly does this cycle mean? It means exactly what Dave Thomas said. Check out where you are. Take a step towards your goal. Yeah, that's plan. Yeah, taking a step towards your goal is, of course, not only plan, but the word goal, where does that come from? How do you define the goal? You have to plan what you want to do. And with plan, we don't mean like plan 2 years ahead. Yeah, this is about smaller increments. Then do, which means try out how your plan is. Check. Yeah, evaluate how your plan worked, and then act. That means continue your plan or adjust, then repeat. Those of us who've never heard the Deming cycle might actually still know it under a different name, with slightly different labels, but essentially still the same concept, which is the scientific method. You form a hypothesis, plan, then you perform an experiment based on that hypothesis, then you make observations to validate whether the experiment confirms or disproves your hypothesis, check, and then you adjust your understanding and potentially repeat, act. So, and that I think is very crucial for agile software development. Not only for agile software development, it's crucial for a lot of things. Basically, it's what you do intuitively when you're driving a vehicle. You have a plan. You want to go from A to B, from where you are to where you want to get. If it's the first time you're going there, you might look at the road map before. You might open Google Maps to see the route. And you might want to plan stops if it's a longer distance that you're going, or maybe it's just 5 minutes, then you probably don't plan stops in between. And but you don't decide up front, like in 3 minutes, 45 seconds, my steering wheel has to be turned 17.8 degrees to the left. It would be nonsensical to plan ahead like this. How many of you know Scrum? Hands up. And don't worry, it's not about, I'm not gonna quiz you how true your answer is. That's not what this is about. Just if you think you know Scrum well enough to say, yeah, I know a bit about Scrum, then just raise your hands. Okay, still, I again see almost no one. Actually, I don't see anyone raising their hand. Let me ask a different question. Can everybody please press the raise hand button just to see whether it's working? Please press the raise hand button. Okay, it's working. It's working. We see it's working. You can lower your hands. If you don't know Scrum, that's actually for me a surprising audience. Because for a lot of people, Scrum actually equals Agile. Then I not do what I often do, which is just rant about Scrum, how bad it is. And we can skip that part and can directly go to another question. Let's go to another question. So let's say you want that in your environment, you can establish agility successfully. For you as a team, as well as how as a team you're embedded into the organization. What are the preconditions for that? That's still a very unspecific question, because there's, of course, a lot of preconditions for that. What has to be at the heart? Like, what values do you need in order to be able to run a Deming cycle in your organization on all levels at all times? What values do you need? Someone says accountability. That's good. Yeah, it's a good answer. Continuous improvement mindset. Yes. Ownership. Yes. These are all good answers. That's exactly the type of vocabulary that I expect. Open to feedback. Feedback. Yes. Feedback. Very good. What else? Collaboration. Yes. Open to adapt and change. Yes. Speed. Yes. Flexibility. Mhm. These are all good answers. Let's wait for like 2, 3, 4 more. Teamwork. Yes. These are all good answers. Now, about 30 years ago, a group of engineers worked at Chrysler for the payroll system at Chrysler. And they were basically also asking themselves the same question. Not because maybe they were, maybe they weren't conscious about this type of question, but because they all already experienced a few things in their life, what worked and what didn't, and were together in a very particular constellation. And they came up with the following. At the core is their mantra, embrace change. And when you look at what were your answers, there's a lot of things that are connecting to that. Yeah, improvement is change. Improvement is a specific type of change. Yeah, but it is change. Feedback. Also, it's feedback only makes sense if it actually has impact, and the impact is a change. Open to adapt and change. Flexibility. Continuously clearing roadblocks. Yeah, there's also change. First the roadblock is there, then it's not there. There's a change. So embrace change is at the core. Also, if you look at what you do as a software engineer, you change code all the time. That's the core of the stuff. So embrace change, therefore, is at the center. And then around embrace change, we have 5 values. And these values, they connect very much with what you've said. Yeah? For example, the first thing that was put in there was accountability. Yeah. Now, accountability isn't here as a word, but we can still identify which values here are related to accountability. Yeah? Respect is related to accountability. Yeah? So I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it out of respect for the people to whom I said I'm going to do it. Then communication, of course, is a little bit related to accountability, and feedback in case something didn't work out. Yeah, there's just no accountability without feedback. I think there's also no accountability without courage. Yeah, because if there's no courage, people will deflect accountability. So courage is also required. Then continuous improvement mindset. Yeah, it's something that I think also is not in here, but it emerges from the values here. And when you have feedback, and you act on feedback that will automatically lead to improvement, for example. Another aspect of improvement is, okay, you're not happy with the status quo. You have to have the courage to change it, and you need to communicate it to be able to change it. And while you're doing so, you have to do it in a way that is respectful towards your environment and the other people in your environment. Otherwise, you just run into the team and say, what you're doing is all wrong. Let's do it differently. And that will probably not be very well accepted by the team. So the communication with the team about bringing in change, of course, has to be respectful. And that goes both ways. Yeah. So if someone suggests a change, we also have to respect their input. For a while in our company, we were actually discussing whether courage should be replaced with psychological safety in the value system. Yeah. And for a time, we actually ran with a slide where that sector was psychological safety. We then changed it back to courage, because psychological safety is not an input value to our value system, it's an output value. Psychological safety is not the precondition of the system. It is something that you first have to establish with other values. It's an important value, but it's not an input value. So that's how we thought about psychological safety. It doesn't mean psychological safety isn't important. It's very important, but it's expected that it emerges out of the other values that we have here. And this value system that I have depicted here actually has a name. Does anyone have an idea how this value system is named? I actually told you already, just not that it is this thing. This value system is actually extreme programming. Exactly. So Siddharth put it correctly in the chat. This is extreme programming. Yeah. There's a bit more to XP, of course. Based on this value system, you then have principles and practices. Yeah, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go in the detail of that. I'm going to show you just this. Yeah. So here we have a bunch of people. Yeah, that's in the top left, that's Ward Cunningham. Below him, Chad Hendrickson. We have Don Wells on the horse. On the right side, Ron Jeffries, Martin Fowler, and most importantly, Kent Beck. Those people are the creators of extreme programming. Well, strictly speaking, Martin Fowler, not really, but he was an immediate early supporter and promoter of extreme programming. And when you look at what you see here, those are the feedback loops of the original extreme programming. Yeah, this is basically the original graphic by Don Wells on the extreme programming website. Just Siddish took this graphic and colorized it. But everything else is like the original picture. And what you see is that extreme programming has explicit conscious feedback loops on all scales of time. Seconds, minutes, hours, daily, several days, weeks, months. On all scales of time, there are different feedback loops caring about different levels of abstraction in the work done, in the outcomes created in the project, depending on what level you want to look into the project at that scale of time. Okay. And then I think of all the agile methods that are out there, extreme programming is the one that works best. Yeah. I'd actually almost go as far as say it's the only one that actually works. If you look at successful teams in software engineering, what they do, you will usually find 50–60% or more of extreme programming being done in the teams. There can be variations. Yeah? Some people just don't like pair programming. Does it completely fall apart when you remove pair programming? No. Is it pure XP if you don't do pair programming? No. Does it matter? Also, no. Yeah, what matters is that it works for you as a team and for you as individuals. So I personally am a big fan of pair programming, but then again, I also admit I also like working alone. Yeah, because I like programming at odd times. Yeah, I like programming at 11 p.m. Yeah? Now find a pair in your team at that time. Not possible. Then you have to find other ways how you share the knowledge of whatever you've created. Yeah. I also like to be very, very meticulous about the code that I write, which means I will very often experiment with things and ask several rounds to people, or nowadays also ChatGPT, whether this is the right thing to do or that is the right thing to do, and so on. So, yeah. But that's basically the XP feedback loops. Yeah. And what I find quite interesting is now if we look at our situation right now, our situation is a very unique new situation in software engineering. It wasn't there before, not in this way, which is that we can just ask stuff like ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude or whatever. We can ask AIs, or actually not really AIs, we call them AIs, but they're LLMs. We can ask LLMs a lot of stuff and also have them do stuff for us. What's the code quality that you get from Copilot or Claude or ChatGPT? What's the code quality that you get from them? According to your experience. We already have the, there's a buzzword. Yeah, a buzzword for meetings is bullshit bingo. And Sia hit the jackpot with the consulting bullshit bingo, it depends. The perfect consulting answer. Yeah. Yeah, when you ask as a consultant, you ask a question, it depends is almost always the right answer. Yeah, which is true. Yeah. It's so true, it depends. Yeah. And so it depends on what? The code base, size of change, the quality of your prompt, but also how good the AI is. Yeah? How well the AI actually understands the context. I imported a code into the garbage in, garbage out. By the way, my experience, so just yesterday, I was in a meeting where someone saw my screen, how I was talking with ChatGPT, and they were baffled. Why is ChatGPT so nice to you? Look at the replies of ChatGPT, so polite. I'm never getting such polite responses from ChatGPT. And so then we discussed this a little bit. And my experience with ChatGPT is the more you invest in the quality of your prompt, not only in the factual quality of your prompt, but also in the linguistic quality of your prompt. Using English in a correct way, choosing beautiful, precise vocabulary, being very diligent about grammar, you actually get better results from ChatGPT in the responses. And not that ChatGPT does this intentionally, but it's simply how LLMs work. Yeah, you basically have a statistical pool. Yeah, you have a lake of information from which your answer can be drawn, and all kinds of branches with probabilities associated. And by using language in a better way, you basically shift probabilities from some paths to other paths, to paths that match your language better. And typically, information that is more beautifully written is also better information. That's of course not always true. Yeah, that's not a hard thing, that's a soft thing. But yeah, that's an experience we have with that. Now back to AI, why I bring up the topic. So we know that we get very mixed results from ChatGPT. Now, how do you know whether the code that you get from ChatGPT is meeting your expectations and your requirements? How do you know that? Yep. We got two answers and they're basically the same. Tests. Third answer of tests. The tests help a lot. And I think we are now at a very interesting point where people like me have been preaching XP for more than 25 years now. And sometimes we've been heard. Some of us are so lucky that they work in organizations that actually are designed and built around and on top of XP. But the vast majority of us, not from a perspective of this session, but the whole industry globally, but especially India, we are not lucky to work in XP environments. And that's sad, not just for us as individuals, but it's sad also for the businesses, because I firmly believe, not based on blind faith, but based on my personal experiences that I made as a software engineer over the decades, that XP is a very successful way to produce software. Not only when you're working in environments where requirements frequently change. I've also worked in environments where the requirements were known upfront for 3 years and wouldn't change at all. Even their XP practices were tremendously successful. There was a situation where I started in a project, and when I joined that organization, building the software locally on your machine took about half an hour. Just building it. It's not a single test run, just building it. Half an hour. And they just newly introduced the weekly build. And the weekly build was still usually broken. And when the project was done, it had a code freeze phase of a not predetermined time, but that usually was around 3 to 6 months, where only system testing would run, and the only changes that were allowed were bug fixes for all the defects found in the system test. So I did a lot of things in that project, but I think the key things I did was change the build. I rewrote the build. The build then didn't take half an hour. The build then took 2 minutes as a complete build, and you could build incrementally. When you build incrementally, it would typically take like 15 to 20 seconds. That already, as you can imagine, was a huge game changer. Because when the build takes half an hour, when are you going to run the build? And how often are you going to run the build? Yeah? You're going to run the build over breaks, and you're going to run the build over meetings, which means the feedback, whether you just broke compilation, is feedback that would now depend on external events like meetings. Yeah, when the build takes half a minute, then you run the build whenever you want. Yeah? Just a few seconds would, of course, be even better. Yeah? Another thing that I did is I introduced a unit test framework. So we could actually write unit tests. There were no unit tests when I came, not a single one. That means developers would write code for weeks, then integrate it, the build would be broken, then they would be busy several days fixing the build. Once the build was there, they would throw over the fence an image to the system test, and then they would test. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, you would get back the bug reports from the system test, and then you would start fixing those bugs. You can imagine that that is a horrible process. And introducing a test framework, a unit test framework there, and starting to write unit tests was a total game changer. When I started with that organization, they were in the middle of rewriting the memory management of that operating system. And I was like 6 engineers, more than half a year, just rewriting it. They called it refactoring, but it was not a refactoring, it was a rewrite. And then they had to do another partial rewrite because the memory technology changed from E2 PROM to NOR flash. Yeah, it just requires that you handle memory very differently. That took 2.5 engineers, half a year or a year to do that. It was already significantly faster than before. Yeah? But the next rewrite of the core parts actually took just 2 weeks based on test-driven development. TDD was, of course, not the only factor. The other factor was having been part of the other 2 rewrites, all the knowledge that was gained there. But without TDD, that would not have been possible. So those are things that I think make us agile. Stand-up meetings are okay. You can have them, but they're not the most important thing. Fast feedback is the most important thing. So when you connect this back with your answers in the original question, I think as a group audience here, we are already set up pretty well. we are approaching the end of our time. Yeah, and I want to open the floor also for questions and discussion. Yeah? And I hope it's also pretty clear that we are time boxed, yeah, by 1 hour, that there is, of course, so much more that we could speak about this, that I also would love to speak about. Yeah, like there are things like the Agile Fluency model, where we can look at agility from the perspective of a set of very specific questions. It's called the Agile Fluency model, but the word fluency gives it away. It's very closely connected to flow, and it's connected to flow in more than one sense of the word, like psychological flow that you have as an individual or as a team, but also flow in the sense of Kanban and queuing theory and Lean. Yeah, there's stuff to talk about, but we are at the end of the time box. Yeah? So any questions or remarks about what I've said so far? Can you expand a little on pair negotiation from feedback diagram? Of course. Yeah. So the idea of pair programming is to serve the team multiple purposes. One aspect is that you want, ideally, that everyone in the team understands every requirement of the system. Another aspect is you want that everyone on the team understands every technology that is used in the system. Yet another aspect is that everyone in the team understands every process activity that is required to bring something from ideation to the hands of the user. The purpose of pair negotiation is to renegotiate based on requirements and design who is working with whom in your team as a pair. The idea of this is not that a pair of engineers starts working on a story and then those are also the two engineers that finish the story, but that the pair changes throughout the story. Some teams like to have basically story stewards. That means one person is carrying the story end to end, another person rotates through. Other teams like to make sure that the people that started a story are never the same as the people who end the story. Other teams are very flexible and don't define anything about that. But the whole idea is that the pairs change throughout the story. But it's even not just two people, but 3, 4, 5 different people that in the end know something about a user story. Does it answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, I think we don't have any further questions. So thank you so much, Christian, for spending time with us today. And thank you to all in the audience also who have joined today. We have our social media handles. Do join our community, SCI community. We'll share the links here in the chat also, and on the social media handle, you can join the WhatsApp group so that you don't miss any of the updates. Yeah, thank you, Richard, for doing that. And loved it, Christian. Thank you again. If anyone wants to share anything, Siddharth, you want to say anything, you can add.
Let me just quickly say something. The reason why the session was, I think, a good session is because of you, the audience. Yeah, all your interactions, that whenever I ask a question, you immediately put stuff in the chat. And so that is what makes these sessions also interesting for me as a speaker. So thank you so much for being such a good and lively audience. Thank you. Okay, then I'll
Okay.
sign off.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
time. Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.